So this session is titled Using a Humanities Approach Toward the Creation of OER Texts. Faculty often have excellent, well-tested handouts, assignments, and lecture materials, but don't consider how they might combine those effectively in creating OER materials. This session is going to overview how easy it is to adopt one existing work to create affordable, high-quality educational materials that reflect a coherent teaching perspective. Joshua Dickinson, our presenter, is an associate professor of English at SUNY Jefferson, a community college in Watertown, New York. He has created more than a dozen OER texts in composition, literature, and education, and has trained other faculty in OER creation techniques. And I just have to say, welcome, Joshua. I am also originally from New York.
Oh, great. Where in New York are you from?
Haverstraw, Rockland County.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's about 6 hours away from us, but yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's great to meet everybody. And if there are questions and you want to interject in any time, that's fine with me. I have a sort of strange approach here with the humanities approach. We're adopting something that is seen as a dying field, and we know the woes of the humanities over the last hundreds of years, but especially recently. But I'll go through a few preliminary slides and show you a few things, and hopefully we'll resurrect a couple ideas. One thing is that if you Google JCC OER, you can get to it. There is a PDF that you might want to look through. Hopefully it won't compete with me too much as I'm talking, but it's there, and it's about 47 pages. And I had a ton of fun creating it right around the same week that COVID hit. And I also created a sort of quick guide to people who had no idea how to use online, because I've been teaching online since 2002 in the SUNY system, as well as through Phoenix, South, University of Maryland Global Campus, and some other places. And so I've seen a lot of platforms, and I wanted to help people, although we know kind of how well that went in the midweeks of March 2020. So anyway, if you want to get to that, that's the link. And again, you could just Google JCC OER and it'll come up, and there's a list of texts by faculty, and it's up near the top of the page. Just a couple things about JCC that I would mention. SUNY's a big system. We're one of 30 community colleges, and I sort of put a map here with where we are. It's very close to the Thousand Islands. If you've ever read, like Kurt Vonnegut, Play Your Piano, he sets some things up there. He also sets some things down in what he called Ilion, the town of Ilion on the Thruway. So we're between the Thousand Islands and the Adirondack region, and also Fort Drum is basically right here, and it's the most deployed unit in the U.S. military. So I've had students in Afghanistan in 2002. No, sorry, not. Yeah, 2002. Yeah, they were there. 2003, actually, 2005, especially. Some of these guys would get deployed several times. So there was a need for portable textbooks and flexibility, and so we, as community college, we also offer that anyway. But we're also heavily influenced by Canada. That's what I grew up listening to on the radio, and and I was also a foreign exchange student in Brazil, so I got this sort of outside perspective about the United States just from geographical reasons, I guess. So that's sort of a little bit about us. And sorry, I hope this isn't gonna. I have to keep moving that. Sorry. I took this picture this morning. I was on a 25-degree run. That's Fahrenheit. And one of the points I was going to make with this, I was pondering this presentation and thinking, what is meaningful work? Like I do the National Novel Writing Month every year, where we write a really bad 50,000 word novel in November. And I've done that for 14 years. You can have a little graph on it, and it really eggs you on to meet your goals and try to finish early and things like that. And I was thinking, running is sort of a silly activity, but at the same time, you get what you put into it. And then writing's not like that. And you probably know Malcolm Gladwell has got a new recent book the Bomber Mafia, which I just read this week. So I thought this quote was really interesting about meaningful work, autonomy, complexity, and a connection between effort and reward. Those are some qualities that work has to have if it's satisfying, to be meaningful. And writing can't promise that. You know, maybe each of us has, you know, passed off a 30-page paper in one sitting. I remember doing that one time, but usually it's not like that. So there's not a direct connection between what we put in and what we get out. Having said that, you can write at speed, and you just, like we do with the novel writing month, you lower your standards a bit and see what comes out of it, and you'll surprise yourself, and then you can edit that always later. So we're right in the middle of a maple syrup season up here. So it was great that it was 25 degrees overnight, because it hasn't been lately. I just thought about this, and I'm like, you know, I can prepare for my half marathon March 30th, and I can know exactly how I'll do. If I'm running, I can tell within 2 beats per minute what my heart rate is. I'm probably within 0.04 of a mile, knowing the roads and where I go, where I'm at. But OER is not like that. Because it's not like that, I really enjoy it. I created 7 OERs between August 28th, 2017 and October 7th of that year. They were all different. They were all at least 80% mine. And that's not the typical OER necessarily. But hopefully what you take away from today is at least doing what you already do, how might you refine or adapt or adopt your own handouts, pet lectures, the favorite things that you like to teach, the ways you like to approach things. So there's the Oswegatchie River, translates as black water because we have all kinds of, it's clean water, but you can't see into it because of the pine needles. So that's a little bit of the Adirondacks up here. As we know from the old 2017 days and before that, the 5 R's of OER. So I'm going to quickly, mention that. Now, a couple of things. My school shopping used to involve coming to this community college's meager bookstore with my mother's financial aid check. My first date with my wife, I was at Colgate University and couldn't afford the books as a grad student in English. And so we went to my previous grad school, Syracuse, to get books. So those are a couple experiences where affordability does apply to me. I attended Jefferson for 3 semesters and then went to SUNY Potsdam, Syracuse, and Colgate. So I've seen some of the small and the big, the community college, the private, the public. So we also teach a lot of preps. So I have 7 and 7 for the year. Courses I do overloads and usually at least 5 preps. So there's a lot of, putting a lot of work in up front is the only way that this is workable. So what is in a humanities approach? Well, Spock, talk about an old allusion. Hopefully it's not a dead metaphor here, but the mind meld. Hopefully we're past lunch enough where we're not thinking of tuna melts or melt when we see the word mind meld. But basically, us, them is one of the things we look at in the humanities. We have a lot of common terms when we look at subject, object, foreground, background, figure, ground, all those things. And they go from music to art to English. And honestly, we haven't really revamped this for 2,500 years. So there is that. And the risk of that is, again, you don't have to fall in love with the past just because you're doing this. Everything we've seen today is about innovation, accommodation, and diversity, and really want to honor that. Some of what we can get is new and some is really old. The Great Gatsby just came out of copyright last year, so things like that perk people up sometimes where they're, oh, I could use that in different ways now. So it's always about texts. There's a Robert Scholes, Scholes, he's a great writer of The Death of the Humanities, but in a sympathetic way. And he had a little bit about this, and that humanities is always about the text. And he was pulling in things like context, message, contact, code, sender and receiver. When we think of creating content, what are we going to do? So if you're just looking at this, a couple things. The one that most excites me lately is the student OER, student-led OERs or student-created. So a course capstone assignment or interviews can involve that. At Jefferson, we have a lot of veterans, so we have a course in which it's team taught, and I do the short stories. So I'm doing Tim O'Brien, the things they carried, and some Vietnam stuff, and then the Civil Wars, Mark Twain, the War Prayer, private history of a campaign that failed. And what these are, the course is a comparison of for combat veterans of Vietnam and the Civil War. Now you might think, so Vietnam closer in time. These veterans of Afghanistan and Iraq do not relate at all well to Vietnam. They can't get their mind around that. So we've been teaching this course for several years. Like I said, I do the short story, but there's a music of the Civil War, music of Vietnam, which you get some great interchange. We do a mask project. Our students created masks that were put in the U.S. Embassy in London, and on 9/11, the 25th, no, not 25th, would have been the 20th anniversary. They were up in there. So we've done some OER work with these students, getting their end products, their capstones into OERs. So that's a kind of a neat one, instead of just this being content. Now, let me pop out of here for a second. I want to show you something strange. Hopefully this doesn't take you down the path somewhere, but let me see if I can find this. Yes. So these are just my list of texts that are at the SUNY Press. And like you can kind of see, they do a really good job with the covers. That's just a watercolor my brother made. So you can kind of put those on. So $28, not bad. Free for PDF. So it depends on what the student wants. But if I wanted to grab an entire text for free, of course, you know that there are these weird repositories out there. And the one that is interesting is called the Lard Bucket List. And it's entirely legal to use. I've used a chapter of it once. And you can kind of see here some of the, intro to British Lit, but a lot of these are business communications. So I think I used a chapter from a communications book. What it was is basically somebody at a publisher outed their entire catalog before it got published. So it's anything from beginning algebra, dozens and dozens and dozens of books. Their authors have been kind of scoured, and their names are slightly different, but they're fully formed texts. You can yank a chapter. You can browse them. You can use those as long as you acknowledge them properly. So that's one way you can kind of go part way. Like if you didn't want to create your own text. Since I did the guide that some of you are looking at, I also have done what I found was really difficult was a Principles of Education book, which I teach. That's sort of a foundations course more than a principles course, but really difficult to get a grip on contemporary education. So I did that one, and I did a tech writing one that was pretty difficult. But most of the time, it starts with, hey, what do I use already? Where can I grab some things that I don't want to create myself or don't trust myself to create? Like in a grammar guide, I don't necessarily want to reinvent grammar in my words. This is all before AI, folks, so you can factor that in as a sort of lens that would change anything that I did. Probably make it easier, but also complicate it unless you cite as you write, which a lot of people don't do. Next week is my term papers. We're doing an 8-week session, and I can tell you that as it goes. So a couple things here. How might you use the guide that I created? So it's got a lot of strange sections if you even glance at some of the titles. One refers to South Park, one's about chaos, one's about pre-Raphaelite painters who thought that only painting before Raphael was valid and legitimate and should be copied. So really going back to the past. So there's just a couple, just to give you a taste of what the approach is. It's kind of conversational, like you get in a discussion posting in a course. And we had a SUNY initiative, so we were paid a little bit of money per book. So you could really load up, and you could also help mentor it. The money's gone now. and a lot of the impetus has gone. We also run into, as you must, the accreditation cycle. Ours is a 10-year cycle. So that's really all my campus has been worried about for 2.5 years. And before that was COVID. So you can imagine my efforts at trying to enlist peers to do anything are probably stymied. They're pretty tough. It's a tough sell right now. Maybe next year is the answer I keep getting. One of the things I put in here is the Goldilocks principle. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And what is just right? So how do you chunk up the information? How do you want to sort of put your voice in there? And one of the things that this becomes really fun is look at the text that you're already familiar with in your field. A lot of them have what I would call lacuna, like in Lion King, Lacuna Matata? No, Hakuna Matata. Lacuna are blind spots, sort of like that game you can play with the pencil right in front of your eye. Whole fields, whole disciplines have blind spots, or they have texts that they don't cover those chapters. I've been on some searches recently, and that's a great question to ask a search candidate. If you had to teach this intro course, which chapters would you either speed through, cut, or in why? So there's some idea of like how to put information out there properly. We know that students don't want it page after page of text. Front loading. One of the things there is you have to keep a list of your changes if you're taking an existing OER. And say what you changed, which, we're running into that with AI as well. Like, is it me or them or what? MLA had to go through a 9th edition just to cover how to cite strange things a little differently. I'm watching a video and there's a commentary by somebody who mentions somebody else. How do I cite that? It gets very complicated. The other thing is tone. Like I mentioned, I've been teaching 22 years online. This week alone, I had an AI email to me myself that I could totally not understand. So that's becoming a thing. Tone obviously is a thing in emails. Have had some run-ins with that. So tone is tricky to balance. We know that most texts have an edited tone that is so sanitized it will put you to sleep. Thank you, Pearson. Pearson is the sort of dirty word in public for their ultra corporate approach. I've had their run-ins with them a few times with texts and text reviews. So a couple things, blind spots, and also I intentionally put in here not blind spots but bland spots. So I'm going to show you really quickly I got all done with this OER on education, and it was half me, a little less, and I was like, well, what can I put that's me? And so let me see if I can find it here. Yeah. In the education, so I have, and now for something completely different, probably should have had quotes around that. It's Monty Python's words. And I said Monty Python on education. And so I went and I looked up some of my favorite clips, Philosopher's Football. They got Socrates playing soccer. And then I put a little few bullets that people could talk about as students. Then the typical Creative Commons licensing. So what I was using was Lumen software, which is blogging software. It's WordPress, basically. Basic blogging software. If I was going to do this again, I'd just use Word, and then I can control the pages better. I once, after I did 5 of these texts, I was trying to be a good technical writer, so I was creating these really nice titles of the right size, and then I finally realized that the software created it automatically, and it uses whatever size it likes, which is not very good technically. It's too big relative to the text. So guess what I had to do? Yes, every page on 7 texts it was, I had to fix by taking out my nicely created title because it was appearing twice. So when you say writing is chaotic, iterative, doing things over and over again, yes, it is. And you would have a lot of tabs open like I do here. So just to show you, these were kind of fun to create. It livens things up slightly. I mean, the Black Knight is a little edgy with the, flesh wound and all that, but with the Black Knight, how will I should have typed it better there, but how would your interactions with contrarians go? You're going to have oppositional defiant people with whom you interact. what do you consider an argument? What are some legitimate arguments? So the argument clinic, dead bishop on the landing, the marching skit, the silly walks. So converting something that you see in the mall, maybe as a t-shirt or online, comes up in your Facebook feed, and then trying to come up with some actually serious questions that are totally open-ended, and it's sort of a last afterthought. So that was kind of a fun thing for a not so fun project that I did. More fun, creating a space, a science fiction text, adding illustrations to an African-American lit text, using Creative Commons a lot of the time to find those. So you can do a lot of great work with repositories, and then just pairing things, ordering them can be a ton of fun. So yeah, some of the text, some of the table of contents look a little strange. So some are, this is a play on James Joyce, and then this is a play on South Park. So high culture, low culture. It's all texts. We can handle it. And how to use images. For instance, using the Creative Commons, different Creative Commons searches, you can get some really good text images. That's what I use for the African American lit. Okay, so just a couple things. So yeah, it's kind of fun to just dip into the sections, and then this one was the old and the new. So I mentioned Humanities is old stuff, also new stuff. How can you refresh your own teaching approach? So just taking a different approach to what you already have, or taking what you already have and doing something different with it. Those are two different kind of things. We tend to think that it has to have a super high bar as educators, but we're already doing some kind of innovative, good things. And it's more than just lab manuals in biology that they often like to rip those off. We had an issue with somebody's like, hey, can I use this manual? I found it somewhere. And we're like, well, where did you get it? You got to kind of cite as you write, figure stuff out, figure out when you can use things. In our training, we were basically taught, except for music links, most even copyrighted materials, I know the librarians are going to cringe, but most can be used as links. So I made use of Atlantic articles in my research course, and then you can get something current. Okay, couple things. The pre-Raphael. So here's a pre-Raphaelite painting. They're trying to copy those old masters, supposedly. So it's very loaded in its topic, in its how the paint is on the. I took too many art history courses, so I love this stuff. But you can go to the mall and get a calendar of pre-Raphaelites, right? But things that are 100 years old are not copyrighted. So a lot of people dip into old materials. I tried this with like Dante's Inferno, and you get a lot of times you get like a really bad translation. It's just not very well done. So in my mythology course, I do have like the Robert Pinsky translation. He's a former poet laureate. So I'm using something new, not something replaceable, because translation matters. If you don't believe me, these old texts matter. Norton just published the Iliad, and it's so popular it's out of print. And translation's excellent. So I'm waiting on that, see if I can use it. Art and music I've always liked to impart and include. And so we've taken kids to the Rock Hall of Fame and things like that. And so we've used a lot of approaches in integrating music. Not the lyrics. I don't paste the lyrics into any OERs, but you can use the links, and then think of projects. That's my new project, is music and composition and music and literature courses, how to use that quite a bit. So okay, so considere, right? Thinking of the stars that we're seeing, right? We are in the path of the upcoming eclipse, so we're supposed to get like a couple 100,000 people in our backyard and in this rural area, because we're literally right on that line. But I always like to look at etymologies, and the one here, observe the stars. So if you are thinking of doing this, colleges that think of it, they're thinking of the most enrolled course so they can make the most savings. Personally, I tallied it up and over $215,000 have been saved in my classes. But enrollments tanked in the last 10 years anyway. It would have been a lot more. So one of the considerations, I guess it's not on here, but it should be AI. And I've started dabbling with using it, but none of my books have it. Obviously, it was before that. One of the things also with this is agility. I created the college writing handbook for JCC, so all our adjuncts, all our concurrent enrollment sites use it, but we wanted to update it for misinformation, disinformation. So I found most librarians probably know the spot the troll quiz, which students either ace or tank. 8 examples of is it a troll or not from like a TikTok. There's the Goblin Threat plagiarism tutorial. University of Maryland Global Campus has a great information literacy tutorial. Southern Mississippi has a great plagiarism one. So literally within minutes, you can just take an existing book and add that to it. Now it's there. So it makes it a little better, especially when we have an election year. So these are political moves, right? As we've been talking about today. So what else is out there? So there are some typical approaches. I like to vary from the typical a little, but if you do a search, just throw PDF in, throw OER in, both, you'll get it. You'll have a bunch of tabs open, and it'll look messy, and you want to keep a junk file with all your possible links that you don't want to look at that moment because you're in the flow of activity. There's a good little quote from that old book Flow, which is sort of discounted, but the idea of being in the, as athletes are, being in the flow of something. Like I mentioned, I created 7 of these in less than 2 months. So you do work at speed. I don't know what warp it would be in Star Trek. It probably warp 3, but there you go. Ebook resources. This is the big one I've been focusing on more and more because the ebooks in our library are amazing. And by the way, those SUNY Press books were only ever sort of put out there. I wouldn't have been able to do that without a librarian. They were the ones converting the Word files to get it onto WordPress or get the WordPress to SUNY Press properly. I mean, there were tons of logistical problems. So how you want to have this in a file format that you can control, but also just have a junk file with stuff that you didn't immediately use and you want to go back to later. You can pretty easily tell the blind spots in any text, any OER, and just read it out loud. That's a great heuristic. Remember the ancient Greeks, they trusted people who spoke because they could tell if they were lying. If it was written down, you didn't trust it because you couldn't tell. So we know about nonverbal communication, but they did too. So think about blind spots. If you wanted to start this, doing it slowly is the way to do it. What do I already use? Just look in your folders. And then there's a lot of changing SLOs. I'm on the DEISJ is a big thing in New York. So we had to designate certain courses as diversity equity courses. And so I had several of those went through that process. But think of the SLOs. This is all student oriented anyway. So how would the OER meet that need? I mentioned traditional students want print still. The military students really want print, even though if they're happen to be in the field, they can't have it. But traditional students, we're still sort of surveying them. If I have an on-campus class, I want them to have the print. If it's online, if they want to save money, they can have either or. But I don't like the idea of being in a classroom and then you don't know what they're looking at. So it's nice to have the print, and I teach annotation where you're marking things up. So couple things, adapt versus adopt. There are entire courses, obviously, that you can just adopt. SUNY has a whole list of those, and you can freely adopt those. But are they yours? To the extent that you can make them yours. Even just reordering things, which you can do, is a form of making it yours. So cost savings. We've been talking a lot about that with the other presentations. That last one was amazing, seeing the individually, because we don't usually hear the student voice there. That's great. And I showed you the existing materials, and there are great repositories. Certain states have these. Certain states had them and lost them. I think Florida used to have a really good one, and it's gone. I don't know if that's a theme. Seems to be. California has some. Minnesota, really good. So usually you'll get an idea of what's good, and then alternative formats. Some of the places you can, like I have a minor in the SUNY repository, and I can personally upload those. But if you go to like OER Commons, sometimes somebody has to vet it or edit it, and sometimes they have strange criteria they use. So the other thing too, all those SUNY Press books of mine are only in print because, and then I have the PDFs, but SUNY cannot share those to the students as ebooks, because when I created them, I would have had to have gotten the Creative Commons, where it's like no restrictions for everything in the entire book. So if anything in there has any restrictions, it cannot be put out by SUNY. They won't put it out. So I provide the PDF through the learning management system instead. So usable ideas. It's meant to be practical. Some of these approaches are really good. I have a colleague who has this. It's called the Chunky Bar Lecture. If you remember the old candy bar with the chunky bar with the raisins, and it's basically Thomas Hobbes' social contract. I want that chunky bar. It's inside of the vending machine. I'm going to reach in. I'm going to get it. What is stopping somebody from doing that? So he has this great lecture about that. He has a great lecture on the Wizard of Oz. What is the Yellow Brick Road? What is the Tin Man? Wonderful stuff. So getting that down, so that even though he's retired, I have that in my toolkit. I can use that if I want to share that. So it didn't even come from me. Like I mentioned here, units that cover basics. You saw the large bucket list. If I'm teaching research course and the state tells me I have to teach public speaking as part of that, which they just did, I'm not going to research a ton on it. I'm going to just grab a chapter from a reputable OER, which is what I kind of did. So you can search by media type also, and really, in some of these, to a fault, your searches will get, OER comments. Sometimes you'll only get the little chapters or the little lectures and things, and it can kind of be annoying too. But it is nice to be able to have a granular type of search. The last one is, as an English professor, we always brag about being the ones to grade on campus, and all this. We have fewer students now. We have, in my case, 2/3 fewer students. So if I could have done this 7 or 8 years ago, I certainly could do these now. But everybody plays up the time commitment. It does not take 10,000 hours to be good at this, like Malcolm Gladwell tells you about expertise. It does not take 10,000. You can do this at speed. You might have a rickety product that you can then edit, but you do that by field testing it and trying it out. So these are kind of generic screens. There is an OER about OERs that's not in addition to the one I did, but it walks you through how to do this, like the how-to steps. That's not what my guide was about. Mine's more about, like, what are some practical considerations? How can you make this enjoyable and not a slog? And there are guides for the repository searches, permissions. You would have encountered those, I'm sure. But again, keep the old stuff, because a lot of that is where the best stuff will come later if you have to go back to the well, so to speak. And there's large bucket, and of course Project Gutenberg. If you include the illustrations, though, just be careful because it can be an undertaking getting each illustration, although some of them are really good. So just a couple last ideas. We don't have the low cost designator here, and I've been fighting for several years to get that. It's gotten pushed back. I don't know why. Um, and of course, our school did what a lot of schools are doing with those bundles of books, and so we're fighting that battle as well. Um, just as a reminder, what I would tell students: cite as you write. What I'm doing usually in the WordPress, it's great because it'll remember your previous entries. So like I would paste something in, give it a title, go down and get the Creative Commons material in there. You can knock these out fairly quickly because the software allows it. But get the information as you go. Yeah, a lot of what the guide talks about is having that tolerance for chaos, having that tolerance, not only chaos, but which people think is messiness. It's not. It's extreme order at different scales, and if you make a small change early on, it has huge knock-on effects. That's really what it is. So taking perception versus reality. But there is a lot of messiness in this, a lot of clicking, a lot of clicking. So I really encourage people to feel free to use any of the guides and adapt it, anything you like. You can reach out. I'd be happy to work with anybody individually just on your projects or see what you're doing. And it keeps me enlivened in this. Like I mentioned, we're in a middle state cycle for accreditation, so I haven't gotten anybody to get any traction on this, and I'd like to get it going on my campus again. It's like it's obvious you're doing some great things down there with the topic. So just one more couple things. Just some of the text it can be really tricky with the table of contents. So that's the one for the guide. But you get this weird product of if students had an like a Kindle, you can put them out as EPUBs, and they look great. They look better than real publishers' texts or whatever. This is sort of in between, but some of mine are very clunky, as you can kind of see here. Like this one, the table contents got messed up a bit. Again, the tech writing cringe, with the headings and things. But how much is yours? That depends. And some of mine are just straight readers. Like I have a children's lit reader. But take something like David Walker for African American lit, not taught at the high school level, should be, isn't known, very powerful and killed for his words. So depending on, well, you can look into the history of his death. So I'll leave it at that, but it's very interesting. In my mythology, I like to use the Irish. I got into a lot of world myths as the course changed from Western to world. But you can make a strong case that Irish myth is not Western in some ways. So you can get all kinds of things. So like this is a Boyhood of Finn. And then you get into like tips for reading myth. This is just a handout I used to give to students. And so here it is. 15 things that you might, or 13. Oh, he used the number 13. Imagine that. They don't even have that floor in some hotels, right? No. But yeah, 13 tips to read myth. So, you can, yes, you cite yourself there. It's a little strange on general notes. So some things just get into the end matter of a book, and they're useful. So all kinds of these. I did the Native American one's the one I'm currently using, and that I've been teaching the course for over 20 years. So it's nice to keep it alive and change things up a bit. So the guide is there. It's not a step-by-step guide. It's not like that, but it hopefully is a good guide nonetheless to some of the frustrations you might encounter, as well as the benefits of doing this. So I hope that's somewhat coherent. And again, what's fun about it is you can put in a humorous tone. Although, as my former boss told me one time, "You're not funny. I'm funny." And if somebody says that they're funny, they're probably not. So I don't know. So I'll transition back to the group, and if there's any questions, feel free to pose those.
Hi, I am your chat moderator. My name is
Oh, great.
Jenny, and we had someone who made a comment that another great spot quote relevant to student contribution to OER is infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that's great.
Dan Smith. And then we have a comment from Charlene. When I was an undergrad in a survey English lit course, the song If I Die Young by the band Perry came out at the same time we were studying The Lady of Shalott. I came into
Oh,
class
great.
so excited to explain how the old poem was explored and in a modern song, relevance is importance.
That's great. And I was going to put the Lady of Shalott pre-Raphaelite painting up, uh, but I didn't. I chose the other one. But yeah, I actually was going to put that up. That's great. That's fun stuff. I mean, we love the Gothic, the secret at the center of things. Um, Whether you're reading like the Moss books, the young adult fantasy or what, it's great. And for good and for ill, I talk about I'm reading right now The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and it's a strange read right now because you can't help but connect it to other things, and it's like whoa. Uh, uh, so yeah, the tech taking the text as if it's a mystery that only you can unlock. Yeah, that can be a big benefit, can be a huge problem. I'm also reading a book right now about it's a SUNY Press book about Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, and Eliade, the Romanian, and about how they had some problems with their politics that came through. Like you have to be a special person to understand myth, or go way back to the past, to the rural versus the urban. There's all
Mhm.
kinds of chauvinisms involved in what we do. Because just like when you pick a student, you chose not to answer, let anyone else answer. You let that person answer.
Mhm.
So, there's bias in a lot of things. So, anyway, yeah, great comments. I don't
Um,
know how to share the screen back properly, or if you want to take it back over, you can do that. Mine's just showing my desktop, I think. So, do you have it? Or
um, I
yeah, there you go.
Okay, there we
Yeah, I'm
go.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
we have another question. You've created a bunch of OERs. Can you please go into a bit of detail about how to have conversations about workload with supervisors?
Sure. Yeah, and I approach this on a volunteer basis and actually end up getting paid because I just had the right timing. Um, our state budget is very strange in New York, and we had in I think it was 2017 for the 2018 budget they gave money, but it mostly went to the city CUNY schools. But we did get some, and you end up getting like a couple $100. So schools often will make this a priority. We had it as part of Title III in a grant for a while, but what tends to happen in my experience is you get a great initial push, and then suddenly there's more and more reporting put on, and then some other group takes it over. It got to the point with mine where an admissions counselor was running the program because they didn't perceive that I could publicize this to the staff and faculty and all those systems and navigate that. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm teaching these courses. I can't really do both, but you know how that goes. Somebody takes over, and then it's taken over. Uh, so I think it depends, I guess, on where you can find money. You do want to recognize faculty doing this, because there is a significant time component. Um, and if somebody did one, of course you're going to want me to do more. And mine is not typical because I fell for this. Like August 28th, I can remember we were at SUNY Potsdam. I was cranking these out, and it was like American Lit 1, American Lit 2. A lot of it's picking the readings, which was tremendous fun, but you don't want to do these all at once. So serially, how would you encourage people? Also with adjuncts, like if you force them to use an OER to save money for the students, because we exercise control over their texts, depending on the state department, all those things. So I have I'm in addition to all that fun teaching and OER stuff, I do the concurrent enrollment program. So I'm going to two BOCES, the vocational tech schools, and 15 high school sites. So I have over 30 sections per semester that I oversee, where I go and do site visits. So we love meetings as well in New York. I don't know if you guys have the meeting culture bug, but we do that. And so there's a ton of meetings. So how do you do all this in the cycle of declining enrollment? The I guess, also there's money out there in the sciences. And if you looked in my guide mentions this, if you look in 2015 for an OER in the sciences, you'd find pretty crappy one. They were not very good and there were not that many. Now, I mean, there's a ton of really good material, including labs. So they've really upped their game compared to other areas. Humanities is just humanities. So I guess my idea is you can apply it to any field, sociology or whatever. Just knowing that it's text-based because you could use student case studies or something like that. So it's a hard. I think getting a release where you're either paid a stipend or getting a course reduction. That's what we did as well. I just took the money and ran. So, but people do, they prefer the course reduction. They can get it. Sometimes that helps, but it has to occur at the higher level at the same time that you're defending against these bundles of books coming in, because that's where the publisher they freaked out after this OER stuff happened. And I've been on their focus groups, and it's bizarre what they've tried to dream up. First, they tried to change what they considered an OER so that they were creating OERs, which they weren't. And then they changed their tactics about 3 times since then. So if you get a chance, get on a publisher's focus group sometime and see what's in their head about this. It's bizarre. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think so. And then I had a question, if you could talk a little bit about the troll test.
yeah, Spot the Troll. I think it's part of Stanford. There was an information literacy school that put it out. You can Google it, and it's great. Students can quickly take it, and it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, basically. Like, I perceive myself to be so savvy with media, and they will get a few will get 8 out of 8 right. Most of them get about 5 out of 8 right. Several get 2 out of 8 right. So it's a sample message. Is it a troll? Is it a real person? And they don't do very well with it. And you can get into disinformation and misinformation. Lycoming College is the one that does the. It's great. It's a little cursor game, Goblin Threat, and it's like a Dungeons and Dragons. I did gamified classes about 5 years ago, so I was it was all Dungeons and Dragons theme of like role playing and experience points, and we used the Goblin Threat and a bunch of those. So they have tried to gamify. I don't know if there's an AI game out there yet, probably for detecting that, but we still haven't caught up with that. So,
Well, thank you very much.
sure, yeah, it was great. Being here.
I'm not seeing any other
More questions? Okay, great.
questions. I was able to find a link for Spot the Troll. And then you said Goblin Threat?
Goblin Threat, yeah, Lycoming College's library
Okay.
has that.
Then I have found that one as well, so I'm putting that
they're
one in the
fun.
chat too.
They're old too. The kids like them because they're kicked back to like old school kind of. They think that's what we played for games. Those are much worse than these. So I got a Creative Commons image of Pitfall game from Atari. Activision, actually, not Atari. They had sued them for that. But yeah, where he's going over the pit and all that, and alligators and crocodiles. So yeah, so it's fun to just play with that kind of thing too.
It looks like we have another question. In your classes, do you ever discuss OER with the students?
Yeah, we've done similar surveys before, but not in several years. We cut a lot of our library staff, unfortunately. And we also, you saw the conditions of the class. They decided to fire all our tutors about 5 years ago in a way that meant we couldn't get them back. So yeah, that was great. But what was your question again? The students' perception. Yeah, it's mostly that non-traditional traditional divide. Also, they are so used to renting books now, especially from the bundles of books, that they really have pushback about annotating. like it's some sacred thing to have, marked up the Edgar Allan Poe story or whatever. It's like, it's your book. It's cheap. Oh, that's what I would tell you. It's the Sam's Club effect. And I think I cover this in the book, the guide. You know how in Sam's Club people run into you more because it's cheaper? What they're getting is cheaper, so they act less, I don't know, less polite. Because there's a sunk cost idea here. If it's free, they value it almost not at all. So I kind of like the marginal cost that SUNY Press has of like $28. They don't go above 30. And they value it just enough. But if it's free, they won't value it. So think of that when you're creating materials. If it's entirely free, it's suspect in their eyes. In unintended consequence, there it is. Not something you could have predicted. And it doesn't come out in the surveys, but you'll see it in the classroom. So.
Okay. Wow. It's very good information.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that concludes our questions.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it was a privilege. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.